Battery Bill. Battery Bill. For cameras, computers, cars, or scooters. For trucks, boats, jet skis, remotes. Battery Bill. Battery Bill.
All right, how's it going, everybody? It is episode 62 here on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helle, Hunter Hughes back with you here for another edition as we recap the Wyoming game at home for the University of Hawaii. Fresno State coming up this weekend as well, set to release this on Thursday, November 2nd. This is the first pod of November for us. We record this Tuesday, November 1st at about 8:05 a.m. Hawaii time. Big mahalo to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill, our sponsors on this here humble podcast, episode 62 coming your way. All right, quick opening drive here, Hunter. I did want to touch on this. It was really cool over the weekend. It is the 30th anniversary of the 1992 season for the University of Hawaii. What a magical run that was. After a pretty abysmal 1991 year, they turn everything around, right? They go 10-2. They win the WAC. They win the Holiday Bowl, their first ever conference championship in program history, right? Remember all those years as an independent before they made that transformational move into the Western Athletic Conference, actually clinched the conference with a victory over Wyoming way back 30 years ago. And it was kind of fitting that it was a Hawaii-Wyoming matchup where this team got to be celebrated. It's a big year. I mean, it's the 30th year the 30th anniversary of 92. It's the 15th anniversary, basically, of 2007. Those two amongst the teams in the conversation for greatest ever at the University of Hawaii. I think a lot of people still feel that 2006 was maybe a better team than 2007, even though that was the Sugar Bowl year. But the 92 team amongst the Pantheon, right? I think a lot of people of that time will tell you that there has not been a better team before or since 1992. And they had a terrific turnout. There were a number of guys from that team that made it back, either, obviously made it back to Hawaii or, joined in the festivities, guys that still live on Oahu. They were talking like 40, 50 guys, and they spent like the whole week kind of having reunion stuff and getting together, enjoying each other's company. And they got to go out on the field between the first and the second quarter. Pretty cool stuff and part of the history here for the University of Hawaii. And look, there are a lot of people out there that would argue they're the best in program history. And, I think it's a fun debate, but you won't convince those folks otherwise, because that was one heck of a season.
Absolutely. And when you talk to my broadcast partners over, on the game day segment of ESPN Radio with John Veneri and Mark Veneri, they're a little biased in that conversation because John obviously played on that 92 team. Mm-hmm. Really cool environment. ESPN had their tent set up down kind of by the Clum Gym on the just outside of what would be the west end zone of the Ching complex. And right around there was where kind of the team set up shop too, the 1992 team. And I counted like 50 guys, Jordan. Amazing. Like it was a sizable chunk of that 92 team, which, I mean, that was 30 years ago, man. Like that, you never want to say, how many of these guys are still around, but that's just like a serious chunk of time for people to relocate, life to change, and people to just be doing other things. It shows what the significance of that team. And also I take it further, that brotherhood that we always talk about of being a part of the University of Hawaii football team, how special it is, no matter how much time goes, that we are still a part of the same ohana. And just really cool that a lot of them brought their families and their kids. Definitely kind of a legacy sort of a thing. And I couldn't help but notice too, a lot of the new recruits, like we do every home game. A lot of the pregame festivities is recruiting, bringing in local recruits. I hope they got a chance to go over and at least dap up a few of those legends over there, because you're exactly right. In terms of history of University of Hawaii football, that team is on the Mount Rushmore for sure.
Yeah, I mean, incredible, right? It is a reminder of what could be. It's a reminder of the possibility of this program. It's been done before, right? And so to dream that way isn't complete hyperbole, because I mean, this team, right? I mean, you talk Ma'atanu Vaso, right? 2-time Super Bowl champion, Jason Elam, Derek Branch, Michael Carter, Travis Sims, right? Kelly McGill, all of these guys. And most of them were there. which is as you point out, one of the really cool things, and I'm missing a whole bunch of other guys as well, but it was really cool. And again, I think a reminder of what this program is capable of if the right recipe is put together, if the right elements come together. And it was really cool to see. And to be quite honest, and I get it, like they don't want to necessarily overshadow the actual game that's going on. They don't want to necessarily take away too much from the team that's playing on the field, but I would have liked a little bit more.
Yeah.
I thought we could have done a little bit more, even in game, pre-game, halftime, whatever. Even a little bit more, just parading those guys out, maybe hearing from them on the microphone or something. And I get it. There are logistical constraints and things like that. But, I thought we could have paraded them out a little bit more out there.
I thought so too. They did do the standard end of the first quarter, kind of get everybody out there a little bit. I don't know if you got a chance to see that Koa Wood trophy or memorial honoring thing that they made for them. That thing was cool. I wish that they would have put that up on the big screen or something, but they might have been too worried about the rain, Jordan. You and I were hunkering down underneath that camera stand, trying to stay dry.
I know, yeah. There was a big downpour for a bunch of the first half, quite the monsoon. We can talk about that when we get into the game time as well. But kudos to those guys, John Veneri and company, and it was cool that he got to go down during that little recognition as well. Put it in the very capable hands of you and Mark for that portion of the broadcast. So, yeah, I just wanted to make a mention of that. It's more than deserved. These teams deserve to be celebrated, should be celebrated on a routine basis, on a regular basis, and one of the all-time groups to play for the University of Hawaii.
Absolutely.
All right, getting into the game time portion of our pod. But first, we want to remind you that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. Originally opened in 1936 as a credit union for educators, Hawaii USA has inspired a culture of giving that is rooted in education and has since become Hawaii's largest credit union and expanded to other areas of a community need that impact financial health, including healthcare, housing, and hunger. To learn more, please visit hawaiiusafcu.com. All right, game time here. Wyoming 27, Hawaii 20. Another single score game, another tight loss for the University of Hawaii. That's 3 losses now in conference. They are 1-3 in Mountain West play, 2-7 overall. The 3 of those losses in total combined 13 points, right? The 1-point loss to San Diego State, the loss last week up at Colorado State, and now this, a 7-point decision to Wyoming. That's also 4 straight weeks they've covered. I'll just kind of get that out of the way.
I was thinking the same thing
for the University of Hawaii. It's kind of worked out if you're in.
But they keep covering the spread, Jordan.
Yeah, they were 12-point underdogs just about when this one closed, and so it looked like they weren't, and then they were, and they snuck in the back door. But anyway, kind of just throwing that in there. Another frustrating one, I think. Right, they led it 10-0. Then they were outscored 27-3. Before a late touchdown allowed them to pull back within 7, a failed onside kick on the and an ensuing first down basically ended it with Wyoming closing things out. They actually had a great shot at the onside kick as well. Hugh Nelson got to it, and then the wrestling that goes on the bottom of a pile. The Cowboys end up coming away with it, and so this University of Hawaii team once again shows that they are capable of being in games. This is a Wyoming team that's now 4-1. In conference, just 1 game behind Boise State at the top of the Mountain Division in conference. And so they're one of the better teams in the conference without a doubt. They and Boise State starting to create some separation at the top of the division standings as well. And so for, again, Hawaii very much in these games. Yeah, Colorado State's kind of a bottom feeder right now. Nevada's kind of a bottom feeder, but San Diego State's in contention here in the West Division as well. So they've shown the ability against a couple of teams at the top of the conference in the Aztecs and the Cowboys here. And so it's funny because it's all relative, right? Expectations determine sort of the feeling after the fact, right? If you go in thinking that Hawaii's like a 70-point underdog and they lose by 7, it's like, okay, hey, not bad. Before this Hawaii team that's now 2-7 overall, 1-3 in conference, as we mentioned. At what point, Hunter, does it become like, hey, look, they're showing strides. You see the improvement. They're in games. Yeah. At what point does that kind of turn towards more of the frustration end of the spectrum where you're like, oh boy, how many of these are they going to lose, right? How many of these are they going to kind of come close and tantalizingly, be in it till the end of the ball game? But lose by 1 score. I guess at one point does it become a little bit more frustrating than encouraging that they are near victories, which in the end are losses?
Oh, we're definitely at frustration point right now. We're well beyond trying to spin this positively. You can tell from just the mood on the sideline that's part of my game day duties, is being down there and talking with trainers and team doctors for injury reports. And because of that, I'm just around the guys. And man, it's unfortunate because that sideline is just dead. It feels like the spirit of the team is just down right now, because I think they feel it too. We've been so close, and the record is not really telling of what this team could have done. We've had a handful of chances now that easily could have been 3-5, potentially even 4-4 if really things went our way. And so yeah, it's just one of those things where now we're in a situation where we absolutely have to run the table the last 4 games of the year to pray for an at-large bid to the Hawaii Bowl to have a chance at some postseason play. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Right, and automatic bowl eligibility is off the table with the 7 losses. They've backdoored their way into the Hawaii Bowl in years past, including 2021. So, yeah, that's still out there, right? And I guess for this group, and talking more sort of, existentially here, as a guy who's been through a few different seasons, Hunter, both on the positive and a little bit more on the negative side, like how hard is it? Because I think we've seen this group band together, right? We've seen this group rally, whether it's during the long off season through all that turmoil, whether it was after a 1-4 start to the season, and what they did against San Diego State, what they did in the win against Nevada, and you could see, right, they took it to heart and got better. They got a lot better, I think, than what we saw some of the early season results, and so they've shown the resilience that I think you need to get through a 13-game season, regardless of the results. Yeah. They've shown the bond that is there amongst, this group that is self-branded the Brotherhood, which I think, rightfully so. But how hard is it to kind of keep that faith, right? How hard is it to keep that positivity going when, hey, we feel like we're making strides. Hey, we feel like we're putting ourselves in position, but it's just not showing up in the results.
Man, that's what separates good teams from great teams. And it's difficult when your record shows that you aren't even a good team, because then you really have to rely on some of that extra some of those extra ingredients that make good teams good, is the character of your leaders, the culture of the team, the environment of the locker room, and the bond that brings you all together. And we've seen some guys step up in those leadership moments. I think first and foremost of Logan Taylor right now in the last couple of weeks, completely giving our defense a surge when a couple of our go-to guys have gone down. We've needed a leader to emerge on offense, and outside of Parsons kind of leading the way in the running attack, we're still kind of looking for that dude on the receiving end. I thought it could have been Zion Bowens with a few great opportunities down the field this game, but wasn't quite able to bring those home. I doubt any of the guys are ever going to maybe listen to us, Jordan, although I'd like to be on the optimistic side that maybe it would find their ear. If a receiver is listening, run your go routes at the bottom of the numbers. We cannot surrender the sideline whenever we are running those routes. Whenever we run close to the sideline, Shager has very little space to fit that ball in there and keep you in bounds. I watched it 3 or 4 times with our deep balls. It's tough on the receiver, it's tough on the QB, and it's not a high percentage play. Sorry for the little rant right there, but I've watched it time and time again from our passing attack, and it's cost us huge plays that otherwise could have been caught.
I think that was the other big takeaway for me, was just that there were a lot of missed opportunities in this ball game, right? This is a defense that hadn't necessarily they've played much better, right? They much improved. But the one thing they haven't really done is take the football away.
That's right.
And so it's a lot of pressure that they've put on themselves, right? To come up with stop after stop after stop. You got to be good, play after play after play. When you take the football away, it kind of takes some pressure off, right? You don't have to be perfect. They can be momentum changing type plays. They can be plays that set your offense up. They can be demoralizing plays the other way. I mean, turnovers, a big part of the football game. And what does this group do? And really, Peter Manuma, go out 2 first half interceptions, the forced fumble it well, which wasn't necessarily a turnover, but put Hawaii in good field position on the stack and what they ruled a fumble on the ball going forward. And so, boom, that first half, man, they 2 turnovers, 2 opportunities, and great field position. They got 3 points out of it. Hawaii did. The offense couldn't cash in, right? They couldn't cash in on those great opportunities. Hawaii had it 1st and goal inside the 8-yard line on another possession in the second half, settled for a field goal, right? Some deep balls, some deep shots that were taken that I thought were there that, we've kind of come to expect that Zion Bowens makes a couple of those plays. Didn't, right? They weren't wide open. They weren't necessarily easy catches or anything like that, but they were plays to be made, right, for this group. Defensively, some chances to kind of clamp down a little bit. I think they were on the field a little bit more than most would like in this ball game, again, for the second week in a row, just like up at Colorado State. But couldn't quite at times in the second half get off the field. Gave up far too many big plays right off in the run game. But yeah, I just thought there were quite a few missed opportunities for this group, especially on offense, opportunities to put more points on the board. And if you put more points on the board, that takes a little bit of pressure off your defense. Again, they don't feel like they need to be perfect. Maybe they don't have to sell out as much against the run, get caught in the wrong gap, and all of a sudden it's 70 yards down the sideline. So that was, I think, the other, frustrating part for this group, that, Hawaii didn't have a turnover in the ball game. They were +2 in the turnover department. The UH had 2 penalties for 20 yards. Yes. If you go +2 in turnovers and have 2 penalties for 20 yards, you win most of those games. Yes. Right? You just look at some of these numbers that usually factor in to the arithmetic of winning football games. Look, he also gave up 65 yards on the ground or whatever it was. That you don't really win those football games. And I think that trumped, obviously, Hawaii taking care of the football and being pretty error-free in the penalty department. But it's some of those, right? It's like, dang, man, they left a lot out there. And I think you've heard Coach Chang talk about this. He talks about this in the post game as well. Especially in the fourth quarter, you got to have playmakers. Guys have to make plays. That's just the fact of the matter. And Wyoming made more plays in the decisive second half after being tied at 10 at halftime.
Yeah, and we talked about it at the game, Jordan, that Wyoming is not an overly penalized team. I think they're one of the leaders in all of FBS
in the country.
Penalty yards, and they did not play a very disciplined football game. There were a lot of personal fouls. There were just a lot of unnecessary plays that kind of cost them at times. The pick 6 that could have totally changed the game been a backbreaker for us, came back on a rough passer from Wyoming. And on the same note, how many times did we make it down to the red zone and did not come away with a touchdown? I mean, it was at least 2 or 3 that I can think of. And one of the times was a missed field goal by Shipley, who's been otherwise very close to perfect for us all year long.
Yeah, it was 9 of 10 coming into the game.
Exactly. So it's just one of those things where we're not trying to point fingers. It's just as a unit, coaching, scheme, plan, players, effort, we have to be better on all facets of the ball.
Agreed. Looking at some of the numbers, Hawaii 350 yards of total offense, Wyoming 441. Of course, 75 of Hawaii's 350 yards coming on that final scoring drive right after they went down 14. Kind of went hurry up, turned up the tempo, and it resulted in a Braden Shaker touchdown. 2 Zion Bowens running the football. Hawaii, not bad again, 145 yards on the ground, right? 5 yards per carry on 29 attempts. Wyoming, though, 8.3 yards per carry, ran for 365 yards on the ground. I mean, they were gashing Hawaii at times. Some of those old demons that we saw against New Mexico State where just misaligned, no help from the second level, and all of a sudden guys were running through creases that just led to massive gains. DQ James, 14 carries, 179 yards. Andrew Peasley, their quarterback, had 71 yards rushing at 2 touchdowns. DeWyan McNeely, great name, by the way, 4 carries, 81 yards. Titus Swen, who was the Mountain West Conference Player of the Week the prior week, their starting running back, a little bit of injury, I think, factored in that ball game, but he only had like 20 yards or something like that. And then everybody else, right? It's like, oh, Swen, he's been the workhorse. He's getting the bulk of the carries. DQ James, DeWyan McNeely, the quarterback. Peasley. I was surprised they even threw the ball in the second half, to be quite honest, the way they were running the football. And it was kind of like, okay, they're throwing it. That's a little bit of relief for this Hawaii defense. UH threw for 205. Wyoming only threw it for 76 yards. Again, they really didn't need to throw it the way that they were running the football. Time of possession, Hawaii 26:52, Wyoming 33 minutes and 8 seconds. So again, basically plus 6 minutes or so in time of possession. Colorado State only 4 of 11 on third down. Hawaii 6 of 17, right? So they were in third down a lot in this ball game. And again, that just puts a lot of pressure, much like we talked about with the defense in games past, not really being able to turn over the ball. Hawaii, the lack of explosive play, the reliance on long drives, that it's hard to keep replicating 10 plus play drives, right? It kind of slotting and plodding along with this group. But I'm curious to kind of see what the response is from this Hawaii defense once again, where, hey, look, things look like they were getting a lot better against the run the last 2 weeks, at least from a number standpoint. And definitely this week, I think, was a step backwards. Part of that has to do with injury, no doubt about it. No Meki Pei again in the defensive backfield, right? No Matangi Thompson back there. Logan Taylor's been an animal. The dude's got 29 tackles in the last 2 weeks, his first 2 starts of the season. Panay Bavihi, only 4 tackles total in this ball game. That's usually not a good indicator for a guy that's been so steady for this group. But yeah, just looking at some of those numbers, it's kind of amazing with the way that Wyoming ran the football that this was a 7-point ball game. But again, Hawaii's done enough to put themselves there, but they haven't done enough to get over the hump.
Yeah, and we're still in this season, but we can't help but look forward and look to what's ahead for this program, given just where we're at. And I bring that up because there's a lot of good things in store for us with this group of guys. If prayerfully no one transfers, let me throw that in there, just because the climate of college football is totally different now. But you get someone like Logan Taylor in here for a couple of years, he could be a stud for us on the defensive end with, Panay graduating after this season. He's a super senior. He's one of the remaining guys that was on the team with me, Jordan. Panay, I'm speaking of Panay Pavi'i. But then, of course, with Peter Monema, looks like Troy Polamalu back there, man, running in the flat, making plays, in open field, making tackles, and then opposite the 2 interceptions. Meki Pay has been awesome for us as well. And then I think we got to hit the recruiting train hard for offense with just what we're seeing right now. But I bring all of that up just to kind of get the optimism ball rolling again for what could be to come with what this team is showing us.
Yeah, Manuma has been a stud since he's
Absolutely.
really, been thrust into the starting lineup. He has not disappointed once again. Again, he had the 2 interceptions, forced fumble, sack, 5 total tackles. Logan Taylor, 13 this week after 16 the prior week. 8 solo tackles, a sack, 1.5 tackles for loss. Verto Edwards, Bless Mentales, 6 tackles apiece. Again, Pavihi, 4 tackles. The other thing, Hawaii had 6 tackles for loss and 3 sacks in this ball game, which is usually a pretty good sign. But they gave up 365 net yards on the ground for this group. Offensively, looking at some of the numbers, Braden Shager goes 23 of 45, threw it quite a bit. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, did have the 1 pick six that got called back because of a roughing the passer penalty. Zion Bowens in the receiving game ended up with 4 catches on 45, 4 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. He was targeted 12 times though. And so that's not a good percentage. 4 catches on 12 targets. Nick Senecal, 4 catches, 22 yards. Dior Scott had a couple of grabs for 23. Tamatoa Mokiao Atimalala was a little more involved in the offense, I'd say, than in prior weeks. 3 catches, 34 yards. Chucky Hines had 3 for 24. Jordan Murray also a little more involved early on, particularly. I don't even know if he had a catch after the second quarter on. 2 catches, 10 yards. Caleb Phillips, the tight end, had a catch for 4 yards as well. 9 different guys caught a pass in this ballgame, including the 2 running backs, which I think were, again, the bright spot. DJ Parson, 12 carries, only 29 yards on the ground. Not his usual stuff. But he did have 3 grabs, 38 yards, and he had the touchdown catch. Remember, that put Hawaii up early. And then Tylen Hines, maybe his best game, first 100-yard game in his career. He had a catch for 5 yards, but he also had 11 carries, 103 yards, averaged 9.4 yards per carry. In this ball game. He only ran it 5 times in the second half, which I thought was a little he needed to touch the ball more. I thought the way he was running the football. I love what they've developed with he and Parson. I'm not saying to abandon Parson by any stretch of the imagination, because I think it's a great compliment. But they threw it quite a bit in the first half during the monsoon that came down, even though the run game, again, continues to be the best, I think, most reliable offense. And at times you got to kind of grind it out on the run game. But Hines, man, he's special. I really think that. And you saw it in the ballgame. Again, 11 carries, 103 yards. You almost wish that they had fed him a little bit more.
He's kind of that juggernaut that comes in there, and it's just a different style, a different look. You and I looked at each other after one of his kind of delayed runs and we're like, is it too early to say Le'Veon Bell-esque with his
patient? Yeah, he's
style? Very patient. And it's different than the kind of bruiser, brunt force that Dedrick Parsons brings to the table. So it's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys 1-2 punch with our running attack. It's really, really kind of the centerpiece of our offense, if I'm going to be completely honest. And Jordan, it felt like we did a really good job in the first half, like we always do, spreading the ball around, getting it to those quick outs, those slants, those hitches. Timmy had made mention earlier in the week to John Veneri that they were wanting to do that, and then felt like we had a completely different agenda in the second half. Didn't see a whole lot of that at all. However, from a 30,000 foot perspective, 45 attempts for a quarterback is a dream night. If I had my pick of it, I would love to play at Hawaii if you told me I could throw the ball 45 times a game. And we had opportunities. Bowens dropped a couple of big ones down the stretch of the game that could have been game changers for us. So it's just one of those things. You just got to shake off the dust and keep going.
Yeah, I think they're still trying to find the rhythm, the balance to the offense, to the game plan, to the play calling, right? some of those trick plays in the first on the same drive following a turnover. You know, if they work, it's brilliant, right? If they don't, it's kind of like, okay, you know, is it necessary at this point? First, that drive that resulted in the Dedrick Parsons screen catch and touchdown, man, they were quick screens, spraying it around, right? Moving it inside, moving it outside, some quick throws, went a little tempo at times. That looked good, you know, and then there were drives where we didn't see much of that at all. And so, you know, they've shown the ability to find success different ways, whether it's been power run game, whether it's been, you know, getting Hines in there a little more of the spread run, whether it's been a little more tempo, quick passing game, whether it's been over the top. And I think, you know, they've mixed bag of almost everything they've tried, and they haven't really quite figured out, okay, which bag do we get? What are we sticking with here? Right. And I think we're still seeing a bit of that. We've seen a little bit of an evolution, but it just, they doesn't seem like they've really latched onto it.
I think because they're in some ways throwing a bunch at the wall and seeing what sticks, given everything that's happened with the off season for our team, given everything that we're trying to figure out and establish kind of on the fly. And these coaches are figuring it out for the first time too in their careers at this level of football for a lot of these guys. It's just a product of the environment, Jordan. I think that's what's been going on.
Yeah, and injuries haven't helped, right? Zon Bowens missed a bunch of time. Kawali Nishigaya missed time, came back, looked good. Now has missed the last two games. As I think they're being obviously very cautious and trying to make sure that he's brought along properly following the leg break late last season. An indicator of that, and how about this stat, Hunter? A total of 40 different guys have started for UH this season. They've started 19 different players on offense, 21 on defense, total of 40. That's the seventh most nationally. So they've had the seventh most turnover basically in the starting lineup nationally, right? We're seeing a little bit out on the offensive line as well. With Stephon Bernal went out, you know, the center position, depending on who's exactly available, Tanuvasa, Muasau, like guys are banged up, guys are battling through. Same thing at receiver. It's tough. It's been tough when that factors in, and it's not just an excuse, right? I mean, the seventh most nationally they've been in terms of rotating door at the starting lineup.
Yeah, totally. It's one of those things that it's not an environment conducive of winning. And given a few more turnovers that might have gone our way, a few more, you know, big time catches from this receiver core, perhaps we would be looking at a different record right now, but we are where we stand. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles, Jordan.
Yeah, that's the kind of the crux of it, right? You are what your record says you are at a lot of times, and right now 2-7, 1-3 in conference. All right, that'll do it for the first half. Second half coming up, another opportunity for this Hawaii team to play against the upper tier of the conference. Fresno State coming up this weekend. We'll get into that in the second half here on episode 62.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second half time here on episode 62. Hawaii Football Now, Jordan Hunter back with you. A trip to Fresno coming up this weekend. Fresno State from the Valley, 4:30 p.m. Hawaii kickoff time, 7:30 local time. It'll be on national television. It's on FS2. And then, of course, as always, every game on ESPN Honolulu Radio. The Veneri brothers will be up there calling the action for you. You can check it up on all of our platforms. Bulldogs at last check, 24.5-point favorites, opened up as 25-point favorites. So Hawaii, a considerable underdog once again in this one. Fresno, fresh off a comeback win, 28-10 down against San Diego State this past Saturday, 22 unanswered over the last 18 minutes, basically. They were 28-10 down with like 3 minutes left in the third quarter. They improved to 4-4. They're winners of 3 in a row. They're now 3-1 in the Mountain West Conference. and in first place, tied with San Jose State, but beat the Spartans head-to-head. Jake Haener being back healthy has a lot to do with that. The quarterback who we thought was going to the University of Washington with Kalen DeBoer opted to stay in Fresno. Obviously, a lot of folks there pretty excited about him. He threw for 394 and 3 touchdowns against San Diego State over the weekend. You remember last year, of course, Fresno State came down nationally ranked, and Hawaii upset them 27-24 at Ching. That was Braden Shager's first start, right, as a University of Hawaii quarterback. So it's a tough one. Look, I think the expectation for Fresno State is, hey, they got to win this one. They got to keep pace at the top of the conference, but it is an opportunity for Hawaii. You look at some of the similar results. They've played the same teams tough that Fresno has so far in conference. Their only conference loss for Fresno was at Boise during the season. And so they're going to be big underdogs. Hawaii is. Fresno likes to throw the ball. They run the ball adequately. But no matter which way you slice it, this can be a tough test for UH.
Absolutely. Anytime we play Fresno, it's always a grind. It's always a war. They're the closest thing to us in conference with a true rivalry. They don't like us. We don't like them. And we like it that way. And we don't want that to change. So regardless of rankings, regardless of record, it's always a battle against Fresno. Just last year, Jordan, obviously different coaching regime, totally different situation, but Fresno came in. I think they were ranked like as high as weren't they like 14th in the nation?
Yeah, they were early on, right? This was kind of first third of the season, but they were in the conversation for the group of 5 berth, right? They were amongst the top ranked group of 5 teams in the country at the time. Obviously it didn't quite go that way. Obviously with the Hawaii loss, kind of getting things going, but yeah, they were good.
They were. And they came here, and we miraculously, on not a great year for Hawaii by any stretch of the imagination, we beat those guys at home. And so I just bring that up because anything can happen in these Hawaii Fresno State games. That they're usually games in the trenches. Possession is a big key in these games. Possession of the football, not turning the ball over. And a lot of times comes down to a game-winning field goal. Think all the way back to the Cole Brennan days. That's exactly what happened in that game too. And so, yeah, it's just one of those things where Hawaii's got to play tough. They got to play hard and be situationally and position perfect, I would say, to get the job done against a halfway decent Fresno team this week.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot. You mentioned the rivalry, right? It is Hawaii's longest standing rivalry. They've played every year since '92, when both were members of the old WAC. And with the new no divisional setup, that's not going to be the case every year now. In the Mountain West going forward, it's the 55th all-time meeting between the schools. Fresno leads at 29-24, and they tied once as well. But again, we're talking over 30 years. Basically 30 years, 31 seasons that they will have played each other. So there is a lot of truth to what you said there. We mentioned Fresno 3-1 in division. Their only loss coming to Boise, 3-1 tied at the top of the standings with San Jose State, San Diego State 2-2, UNLV 2-2, Hawaii 1-3, Nevada 0-5. The West Division standings there. The other 3 losses for Fresno State so far this season: lost at home to Oregon State, and then on the road at USC and at UConn. A little bit of a surprising result there. Boise 5-0, Wyoming 4-1 in the Mountain Division. If anybody's curious, everybody else is like 2-2 and worse, 2-2 or worse. So it's pretty much Wyoming or Boise in that division. Likely Boise. I believe they've already got that head-to-head there. Fresno, kind of interesting, right? Because Kalen DeBoer leaves for UW following 2 seasons in Fresno. Remember, he took over for Jeff Tedford, who takes over for Kalen DeBoer because he's back in his second stint as the head coach at his alma mater, former quarterback there at Fresno State. You'll remember him obviously from his time as the offensive coordinator at Oregon for a time, head coach at Cal for 10 years from 2002 to 2012, coached Aaron Rodgers and a few other, those great Cal quarterbacks, was the head coach for a few seasons, 2017 to 2019, resigned for health reasons at the time. Remember, he was 10-4 after a 1-win season. His first year he took over, really turned that thing around immediately. Went 12-2 in his second year, and then 4-8 in his final season before resigning due to health. He won 2 bowl games, 2 division titles, a Mountain West championship in 2018 as well. And he's got this team again in position to contend for the conference championship. It's always tough. It's fun because you got a couple of connections, right? Roman Sepulveda was the offensive line coach the last 3 seasons there in Fresno. He's now obviously the offensive line coach for the University of Hawaii. And then much to the chagrin of a lot of Hawaii fans, Cam Lockridge, right, who played 2 seasons at the University of Hawaii, is one of their leaders at corner for Fresno. So there's some fun ties there. But yeah, it's a program that I think is in very stable hands, right, with Jeff Tedford, obviously health permitting. But he's a guy, he's like 60 plus. I think he's right around 60 years old now, right? He's been through it. He's been a coach for a long time. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you've got Timmy Chang, who is a neophyte in a lot of ways as a coach, right? And still going through some of those learning pains. But I think 2 guys that both programs feel pretty good about.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the, if not the last kind of established older coaches in the Mountain West. Could you get there with me with that, Jordan? Before then was Rocky Long at San Diego State, and a lot of guys want to go play for Tedford, and that's why they're able to win a lot of these recruiting battles with other teams in the Mountain West. There's something to be said about a long-standing older coach that seems to know what he's doing. And it's definitely going to be an interesting clash between kind of as you put, 2 different sides of the coin with these 2 coaches. So it's going to be interesting. I expect it to come down to the wire again, and who knows? Really, anything can happen in this Hawaii Fresno game. We've watched it year after year after year, with exception to maybe that time that they had someone by the name of Derek Carr and Devontae Adams on the outside. They kind of handled us that year pretty soundly, but they don't have them this year.
Right. Yeah. Thankfully for this group, Fresno's averaging about 26 points per game, giving up about 24, 267 through the air, 122 yards on the ground. They do give up 163 yards rushing per game. So maybe something that Hawaii can take advantage of. We'll see there. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Fresno's always sort of had stability, whether it was Pat Hill for decades and then Tedford, and now Tedford's back. And funny that Hawaii's playing 2 of the more, established. Craig Bowl last week, Jeff Tedford here this week. So we'll see how it goes. Again, 4:30 p.m. Hawaii time, the kickoff against Fresno. Hawaii will likely be 3+ touchdown underdogs in this ball game. And again, you can catch it right here on ESPN Honolulu Radio. Getting into the comments for the week, looking at it, we kind of touched on our guy Happily. He was asking about Nishigaya, Najee Bryant, Lele. I think it's, obviously some injury concerns with Nishigaya. I think with the running back rotation, we've seen Parson and now Hines kind of emerge as the dudes there. Our guy Danny dropping a line said we were a little gloom over Hawaii's chances last week. I thought we were pretty pragmatic about it. And, it ended up being another tight loss for Hawaii. And then we got a guy, Morgan, a Wyoming fan who tuned in last week. So Morgan, I don't know if you'll watch this episode or listen to this episode because, you're not playing Hawaii again this week. But if you are, a big shout out to you there. One thing that he did mention, thought, it was a pretty intriguing matchup that we covered. But he did say their running game was a lot better than Colorado State. Spot on. Because they ran for 365 and ran all over Hawaii. So, shout out to you, Morgan. That was very accurate and proved to be very, very, very true in that ball game there. All right, wrapping things up. That'll kind of do it on the UH conversation. A little overtime here. Hunter and I, the Bears fans, we warned everybody a couple of weeks ago after the New England win. Don't get your hopes up. Don't do it. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. It's never going to go well. They traded Roquan Smith yesterday. I get it. He was probably walking. He basically held out to begin the season. Is not happy with the new regime. You got a new front office. You got a new head coach than the one that brought him in. He was leaving after the end of the season. They get a couple of draft picks for it, but it was still rough to see him go. And then today they trade for Chase Claypool. So it's like they got a second and fifth yesterday. Then they trade away a second today to get a receiver who's got another year on his rookie contract next year. That is to give Justin Fields a weapon, I guess, because they traded away Robert Quinn earlier. It doesn't seem like they're very much playing for this year. So I don't know why. I don't know. That's cool. I mean, hopefully Claypool gives them some production and compliment to Darnell Mooney. But
if you're a Bears fan,
I don't know, man. Roquan Smith's should be a Bear for life. That guy's a middle linebacker that
totally.
Yeah.
He's got the makings of an Urlacher, of a Ditka. I mean, a butt kiss, of a Singletary. He has the makings of an all-time great linebacker for the Bears, but we seem to not do anything logical at the Chicago Bears. And if you're a Bears fan, you just kind of sign up to ride the roller coaster. The only roller coaster that I can think of that might be a little crazier is being a University of Hawaii fan. So that's just part of the deal. And if you guys are looking for a fun ride, come join the train. Me and Jordan are always happy to talk Bears football with anybody who wants to share in the misery with us.
Yeah. Just maybe next year. Maybe wait till next year, see how it goes. But we're hoping things turn around for the University of Hawaii this week again up at Fresno. And we'll try not to belabor the Bears' rough go of things. So big thanks to our sponsors, Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill. Big thanks to Jaron on the controls as always this week. This has been episode 62. We do want to thank all the fans as well out there. A nice running into some folks down at the field this past weekend. Nice running into folks, like at Long's and around town as well. It's always a lot of fun. And we're optimistic. Hopefully this season, last 4 games, they ended on an uptick, whatever the results may be. It's been a fun team, fun atmosphere, and hopefully some of these close results start breaking in their way that I think leave a lot more people excited on Monday to kind of get the week started. So we enjoy all the conversations. Please feel free to continue dropping us comments on the social media, on YouTube, on Facebook as well. For Hunter, I'm Jordan. We'll see you guys next week. Aloha, everybody.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.